The moment we all have been waiting for, Flight Simulator 2024, the release was yesterday. But it was a disappointment for a lot of people because they couldn't get in, or if they would get in, they were missing a lot of content. In this video, we're going to look at the cause of those issues based on the information which Asobo shared. Let's roll the intro and then let's look at the details. So this is the response from Asobo, right? They posted a short video, literally 5 minutes, where they explain it, and they described it in a high level detail over here, but I will show it in a whiteboard where I'm gonna explain you what went wrong. So first of all, they say that the servers were receiving an overwhelming amount of requests because everybody wanted to play it. And due to the new structure which they built, right, there are a lot more services now on the back on the cloud, which are handling a lot of things, like, for example, your career mode, your missions, but also, say, which aircrafts did you buy. And one of these critical services did get issues. It was simply overwhelmed by that many requests that eventually it causes delays, and eventually it's even, I would say, stopped working, right? And that resulted in long loading times, people not getting in the sim, or very other channels, or various other issues, I should say. So let's say look at this one, right? So this is the, I would say, graphical overview. This again is a simplified overview of how it looks, or probably looks like. And here you can see a few things, right? So first of all, we've got, I would say, us, the simmers. We were trying to get access to it, right? We were trying to get access to this nice, let's say, object or game called Flight Simulator, which is on the right hand. Now, these servers, I would say, were receiving a lot of requests, right? Which you can see over here, a lot of requests, and all of them were coming from different regions. Believe me, this is likely distributed across multiple regions, right? Because they want to spread the load. That's what you also saw in Flight Simulator 2020. You was able to select between multiple regions, right? In some cases, if you switch the region, it was much faster. Now, if we look at the right end, right, we can see a few things. So let me add some text to this. I'm really bad at, let's say, writing, so I'm gonna say do it easier. At least I hope. So, well, let me type it correctly. Front end, which is over here. So these were the front end servers, and then we also have the back end servers, right? So I'm gonna add a subheading again. Hopefully it's big enough. Let me see if that works again. And this is the backend database. Again, this is a really simplified view, right? Made some typos, so let me fix it. And that backend database contains a lot of information because it contains stuff like, okay, hey, which items did you bought? Where is your mission state? What's your current state of the career mode? So that's all stored in this part, right? So if we would, let's say, draw some lines, right? Let me also do that. Let me add some additional text. Here we go, text, adds text. So what's stored in that? Let's say this part, right? It are the, let's say, missions, career mode. Well, let me type it again. Career mode. Aircrafts. And likely a lot of other stuff, right? So this is included. So if we would say, we would draw an element around this, right? So this is contained in the, so let me search for a box. Here we go. I'm gonna add this one. So this is what was in that, let's say, or is it stored in the database, right? So nothing, would say, scary about this because we would say, hey, this is simply the content which they decided to move to the backend, which has a lot of advantages, right? If it works, because you don't need to download all the content. You simply can get all the stuff, say, access to it really easily without downloading it. But what happens if, let's say, you get so many requests that eventually this one says, hey, stop, I'm not gonna respond anymore, because that eventually happened, right? At least it looks like that these servers were receiving a request, but this part of the, I would say, infrastructure wasn't capable of handling those requests. Well, that's when you get, I would say, all those people waiting and getting frustrated, which eventually results in more and more connections, right? Because you can imagine if I can't play, well, will I do? Well, I will, let's say, simply restart Flight Simulator, right? So what happens is, in this case, I'm going to do it like this. So there will be far more requests coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in. You can see people restarting, right? And then eventually, say, this one, well, simply would say, I wouldn't say it goes in fire, right? But I would say that's, almost what you would expect, right? So you would expect that, hey, something happens, and then eventually this will happen, right? So then this whole environment is on fire and it won't respond, and people get frustrated, right? So people really get frustrated about this. And then eventually they would say started to scratch their head, maybe even. If we look at this, right, if they start scratching their head and all the things which are happening, is not really fun, right? So what did Asobo decided to do? They decided to implement something here, which they call, I would say, a caching system, right? So cache simply, I would say, a copy of data so that they don't need to go each time to that, I would say, backend to get the data. So what they did is I'm not sure. So let me find a suitable picture for this. Do we've got a suitable picture for this? Likely not. But let's see. Cache. Well, let's do it. Let's imagine that this is the cache, right? So here we go. Right. So they added some cache. Keep in mind that this is, I would say, for those who are pretty into the technique, this is memory. I'm 100% aware of this. But this is the cache which they added. So they added some caching stuff. And what they tried to do with that, with the cache, here we go. Where is the text? It's over here. So they added the cache. Now that cache should resolve this issue, right? Because then the number of requests will, say, kind of decrease on this end. But unfortunately, something weird happened which caused these servers to crash. Not, I would say, the same thing as I would say a crash as in a flight simulator, but really a crash of the service, which simply means that the server stopped working and didn't react anymore, right? And that caused even that the cache went gone, because in most cases the cache is stored, I would say, either in memory or on disk, depending on how, I would say, how they implemented it. It looks like that they did it on memory base, but I'm not, again, not 100% sure about that. And that eventually resulted in a crash, right? So if we look at this, it resulted in this crash on the server end, which again caused all people to get errors on this end, which resulted in that people needed to restart Flight Simulator and try again. Again, more people getting frustrated, right? So more people getting frustrated about this. And if people were getting frustrated, what will they do? Well, they simply will, I would say, start, ranting on the internet, which is completely understandable, right? So we've got more people getting frustrated. And then Asobo decided to do something else. What did they do? They implemented a measure, right? They implemented a measure. So what was that measure? So they decided to implement a login queue, right? That login queue was, I would say, kind of prevent the number of requests coming to this end and overloading the servers on their end. So this resulted in, let's say, the number of sessions decreasing, likely to give these servers a little bit more air, which I would say resulted in that these servers were capable of handling the load. Based on the, say, video they post themselves, they handled 200,000 concurrent connections or sessions during testing, right? During stress testing. That's a lot, right? So you can imagine that how many people try to play the game, because if it results in this, in something which I didn't expect, then okay, it becomes really interesting, right? In some cases, you were lucky and it started loading, although really slowly. But in some other scenarios, it resulted in this, I would say, server issues screen, right? So over here. And if you got that right, then you needed to start from scratch. And then again, that started from scratch meant that you needed to go to the login queue. And then eventually, I would say, you hopefully could skip this one. But it could also happen that you were hitting that issue again, and then you were, I would say, you needed to try again. Of course, I'd say this was not what everybody was hoping for, but unfortunately this happened. So what are they currently doing? Because that's, of course, the next question. Well, they are working on this part mainly, right? So let me remove some of the stuff, right? Let me remove the crash. Let me remove the fire. So what they're currently doing is they're working on something where they, I'd say they didn't share any details about that, or not too much, where they will likely implement something on this end where they will be capable of handling the load. That could be something like simply like this, right? So if we would click on the server like this, they could decide to, say, increase the number of servers, because that's, let's say, one of the solutions which they could do. The other thing which they could do is, I would say, increase the database or increase the number of sessions the database can handle. But who knows? They told us that they would, I would say, be open about it and would share via social media once the issue has been resolved. So until then, you could end up in this scenario, right? I hope that the server load has now been, let's say, a little bit better compared to yesterday evening my time, because then it was really a nightmare. So here we end this video, right? In this video, we looked at how, I would say, this nightmare happened, right? Because everybody was looking so for Flight Simulator 2024, and that we kind of overloaded the servers, right? Both using the, I would say, paid version, but also the people who have the Game Pass, right? So likely, I'm not sure, hopefully they will share that number, right? How many people tried to connect, because that's really interesting. That's something which I would like to understand. Again, they implemented some caching functionality, which initially worked, but then they started seeing issues, which even, let's say, probably caused it to become even worse. Then they decided to implement the login queue, right? The login queue to prevent the number of sessions going to these servers, which in some cases worked for some people, but in some other cases, people were facing this one, the server issue detected, and then you were, between brackets, screwed, because then you would need to start from scratch again. Again, here ends this video. I hope you liked it. I hope that you understand a little bit better what has happened. Again, I'm not, I would say, working for Asobo, right? So I'm not, I would say, telling it on their behalf. This is simply how I understand what has happened based on the information shared. If you like this video, then don't forget to watch at the other videos which I have on my channel. And also keep an eye on my channel, because I'm likely gonna try some more live streaming. But I'm first, of course, gonna check if Flight Simulator 2024 works, because else it doesn't make sense. Again, thanks for watching, and hope to see you back next time.